number 2 this week. Now, we need to go back in time. That's right. We always start with the most recent and go back to the oldest. So here we go. We're back in 2017, Emily, specifically September 13th, 2017. Now, I will admit this. I know what I was doing on almost any day of the last, 10 plus years, because I keep a minute to minute calendar that is really my memory. So I'm able to say, I know exactly what I was doing on September 13th, 2017, and I'll share. I was having a wills and estates meeting, because that's something that we should all do.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No, it's not the most fun thing, but it is important. And, as we build up assets and we have capital in this world, we really owe it to those who come after to make good decisions about it. And so while it's not my favorite thing to do, I think I was revising my will that morning. Emily, do you have any recollection, September 17 for you?
Yeah, it was actually a big month for me. I had just started work, my first job after college at GE Capital in Stamford, Connecticut. So I had made the move from Texas, where my family home is, up to Connecticut.
Wow.
Yeah, I moved from the suburbs to the suburbs. But it was an exciting opportunity at that time.
And you did not stay at GE Capital.
Not for very long. I enjoyed my time there. Loved the people I was doing my work with. I learned a lot, had a lot of great opportunities. But it was very clear to me at the time that GE, the company, really lacked strong leadership. And so when I thought about my career 5 years from now, there, in my opinion, no way that I was going to stay with a company that really had no vision.
Wow. I mean, it's such a big and impressive company, but the stock has not been very good. We're a private company. I think our full shares are up the last couple of years, so maybe you made a good decision there. I sure hope so, since you're a stock picker, too.
I hope so, too.
All right, Emily. So 5 great stocks you've never heard of. That's the theme. Now, I should mention before we give the 5 stocks that the market on average for these 5 was up 17.2% over the period, so that's what we're trying to beat. And yeah, I was picking companies that most of us wouldn't be able to recognize. Like if I said Littelfuse, would you? Well, you would know, but would you, dear listener, know what or Blackbaud? Maybe if you work within the charitable world and you use their engine to help you manage grants and donations and things, maybe you know Blackbaud or Nuvasiv or the Ultimate Software Group or Orbital ATK. So those were the 5 companies in haphazard order. In fact, I'm going to go with reverse alphabetical order for these. So Ultimate Software Group, Orbital ATK, Nuvasiv, Littelfuse, and Blackbaud. And that's the order that I presented them on September 13th, 2017. All right, so Emily, looking over this group, I see one clear winner, and almost everything is an also-ran. Let's start with the one clear winner. The Ultimate Software Group. We picked it at $187.19 at market close September 13th, 2017, 187-ish. The company was bought out. In fact, it was bought out within about a year or so. It was announced that Ultimate Software would be acquired, and that deal went through on May 3rd of this year at $331.50. So from $187 to $331.50. Maybe somebody in the private equity world was listening to this podcast because they made a bid for it and it worked. Ultimate Software up 77%.
This was an impressive company. And while people got an all-cash offer, which was, I think, 32% higher than what their closing price was, so a 32% premium, ultimately we did lose a good company in this acquisition, or I guess I should say took private. The company really performed well over the course of 2018. They found a way to run off of a really small sales force, which allowed them to have really impressive margins. It kept costs really low, productivity really high, allowed them to grow at double-digit rates without growing sales and advertising costs at the same. So they had a lot of success in using this model to introduce processes and new products over the past 2 years. Not to mention, they really only at the time, now granted we don't know anymore, but at the time of acquisition, only had penetrated a really small percentage of their entire market. So I'm sure whoever bought them appreciates that purchase now, but we as investors maybe miss that company a little bit.
Yeah, their product was UltiPro software. That was the package UltiPro, and it was basically like manage your workforce, right? And it was cloud-based, and SaaS companies very much ochre on these days and somewhat volatile right now. But overall, we had identified this company a number of years ago. In fact, it first came to Rule Breakers on May 23rd of 2012. So kind of a good 7-year hold, a stock that quadrupled for members. But just for this 5-stock sampler, nice to see Ultimate Software up 77% and taken private. So we don't see them anymore as investors, but they're still out there. Now, I mentioned there's one major outperformer. The weakest performer here, Emily, was Littelfuse, and it's down 8%, so from 184 down to 170 over the last 2 years, so 27 percentage points behind the market. That's the worst performers, so spoiler alert, we have another winner with this 5-stock sampler, again, just through 2 years. But Emily, anything to say about Littelfuse?
Well, Littelfuse makes little fuses and other things like circuit breakers and other electrical components.
It really is true. Now, little is spelled Littel, so we want to make sure nobody thinks that it's just because they're little, but you're right. Fuses are little for the most part.
And I had overlooked that when I knew the company and read the company, and I've been misspelling the company all of this time. But despite my misspelling, it's been a good performer thus far. It's not the most glamorous company. A lot of their growth, was not organic growth. It was attributable to its acquisitive strategy. So despite strong revenue growth in 2018, it was actually a slowdown. Organic growth, that's the growth that's inside of its core business. So without the acquisitions, it was actually declining in the most recent quarter. Guidance has been poor. It's really a cyclical business, as you might expect from a fuse and circuit breaker company. So it has not beaten the market, but given the I guess decreased purchases of cars and appliances and maybe the potential for that to continue into the future, it makes sense given its business nature.
I am just looking at the Wikipedia page. It was founded in 1927. Now, it wasn't founded by somebody named Little T-T-E-L. Nope. It might have even been just a misspelling of the founder, Edward's son, because their first product was indeed a small protective fuse. But this is a company today that oversees like a huge number of different components. There's a lot of complexity in running this business. And while it's been disappointing over the last year to see Littelfuse stumbling a bit against the market, I am happy to say that for Stock Advisor members who bought in March 2014, it is roughly a double ahead of the market. So a quiet, sleepy company. I like these kinds of companies. We picked these in Stock Advisor some on my side because they're just around forever, right? 1927 says enough. And I like how you summed it up. They make little fuses. Well, this was called 5 Great Stocks You've Never Heard of. So these are not necessarily the most interesting companies to talk about. The 3 others, Emily, Orbital, ATK, NuVasive, and Blackbaud, we're going to keep moving. We don't have time to cover them all. I should point out Orbital ATK was also bought out. So maybe we should talk about that briefly.
Yes, they were bought out at 22% premium by Northrop Grumman. So that's an important one because it actually got a lot of criticism for being anti-competitive. It was announced right after Orbital announced a new heavy lift rocket that was designed to, quote, deliberately compete for national security launches. So it was definitely a strategic acquisition on the part of Northrop Grumman.
Yeah, Orbital ATK, which started as Orbital Sciences and then merged once over the course of our holding the stock in Rule Breakers, really a cool company. I mean, rockets. I mean, it might have been a stock you've never heard of. Most people hadn't. But yes, it did get bought out. Somebody heard of it. In fact, this company, the buyout was announced just, I think, weeks after this 5-stock sampler came out. So 2 of our 5 companies here got picked off before we could even make it to the second year review. It kind of makes you wonder, Emily, of the 3 remaining, which will you predict gets bought out first? Maybe even before next year. I realize this is a ridiculous question, which is why I'm asking it, because it's Rule Breaker Investing. Which is going to go next? Blackbaud, Littelfuse, or NuVasive?
I think Blackbaud, just because we're seeing a bit of consolidation in the software industry, and I feel like that one, given the fact that it's down significantly, may be an easy acquisition target.
All right, so these 5 stocks all taken together against a market average of 17.2%. Their 5 returns averaged 21.5% over these 2 years. So we beat the market with these by about 4 percentage points. So 5 great stocks you've never heard of for those who are listening to us and bought right along with this podcast, which we don't encourage you to do, by the way. 2 years ago, you're pretty happy right now. You've beaten the market and you've watched 2 of your companies get taken out. And I'm having a little bit of fun there saying we don't want you to buy these. Of course, we do want you to buy these. We want you to invest in every one of the stocks that I pick in these samplers are active recommendations. The reason that it's a sampler is because I'm looking at the larger services, Motley Fool Rule Breakers, Motley Fool Stock Advisor, and I'm just picking a handful of a few companies when I share them with you on these 5 stock samplers every 10 weeks on this podcast. So all of them are active recommendations. We do like them. But I'm also the first to say, and I've said it many times before on Rule Breaker Investing, whichever companies speak to you, whichever you think will help make your portfolio reflect your best vision for our future, those are the ones I think you should buy. So while Emily just formally called out Blackbaud as in play on this podcast, it doesn't mean that you should rush to buy it.
Yes.
Even though, well, maybe a 30% premium, you think, Emily?
A 30% premium would make this one beat the market.
That's a good point because it's about 13 percentage points behind the market right now. All right, so thus much we can write right now. We've chiseled it into the permanent stone of this podcast, the 2-year review of these 5 great stocks you'd never heard of. We'll be talking about them 1 year from now and closing it out and seeing how they really did end up. Whether the market's up or down over the next year, who knows? We just hope these stocks will beat the market. That's what we're trying to do at Rule Breaker Investing.